Hey, scrappy people, it's Tracy Reed here today, coming at you with another Smash Your Stash tutorial. Today I'm going to be making a sort of folder folio album, trying to smash my stash of 6x8 paper pads. I don't know about you, but I don't find 6x8 paper pads very useful. They kind of just sit in my stash. So I'm going to be using up as much of this paper pad as I can. So what I'm doing is I'm cutting down one of the 6x8 papers, and I cut them down to 2 inches wide, and I'm going to score at 1 inch, and this is going to create hinges for my album. So I'm doing this rather than washi because washi will not hold this sort of album long term together, so I'm going to create hinges instead. And sometimes the hinge is going to be visible, sometimes it's going to be covered up. So I know that it's going to be visible on the inside cover, which is this floral. So I'm going to turn it over so that you can see the black word contrast rather than that sort of iCat print. So I've got that, and now I need to connect it to the next page, which is actually going to be the last page in my album, the last page that you see. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose which background I want to attach it to, and it's going to be this black and white polka dot, and I'm sort of reverse engineering this album. So now I've created a folder, and I want to add another page to the album that's going to fold out from here, so you can see how I'm kind of imagining how it's going to work. So I'm going to, first I'm going to glue down this pocket, and that wasn't smart. I needed to glue down the pocket last, but it's okay because I'm using liquid glue, so it'll come up the 2 times that I need to pull it up. So I just put a thin line of liquid glue around the edges to make a pocket. And I'm going to use another hinge to adhere it, and of course I do it backwards because I was sort of flying by the seat of my pants, and so I accidentally adhere this backwards. It doesn't end up being a big deal. It just makes my pages out of order, the way that not the way that I had originally envisioned them, but it's not a big deal. I just work with it, and it's gonna work. So I should have adhered it the other way. But I didn't want to cover up the words. That was part of the problem, is that I didn't want to cover up the words. So I had the hinge on the wrong side of the paper to make it work the way that I wanted it to. So I had to go with a different direction. So now I'm putting the pocket back on, which I should not have done because I'm going to take it right back off in a second because I want to put the other hinge underneath the pocket instead of on top of it. So, oops, yep, gonna have to pull that off again. So I'm going to adhere it with this ATG glue, which is super strong and is going to hold this album together very well. And I'm just adhering it to the hinge, to one side of the obvious score line in the middle. Geez, I could not think of what I wanted to say here. So what happened with this is, after I had that done, it covered up the black floral in the background so oddly that I didn't really love the way that it looked. So I'm struggling a little bit with what I want to do here, and I come up with a really cool idea later in the video, which is going to be fun. So I'm going to look for another page to add to the last hinge. So now I've got this album, and now you can make it fold like an accordion album, but I wanted it to be a folder album rather than an accordion album. So I'm just kind of working the folds and making sure that everything works properly and folds nicely and nothing is overlapping, and making it so that, it won't close. So I'm going to show you how you can also make it work as a accordion album just by changing the way that you fold it. But that is not what I'm going to do. I'm going to cover up this page with this cute heart. And I'm just marking the center of the heart so that I can cut it out with my circle punch, and I could center it. That's all I was doing there, was just making little marks to center that circle punch, because otherwise if I eyeball it, I can almost never center the circle the way I want it to be centered. So I'm adding my liquid glue around the edges, so this made a larger pocket. And then one more thing over here, I need to figure out what I want to put on this side. And I want to cover up those arrows because I don't think that they look awesome the way that they are. Just because the black hinge covered up part of the arrow print and it made it look off-center to me, which is driving me bonkers. So I'm trying to figure out what I want to cover it up with. I'm going to go with the polka dot here, and then I'm actually going to create another pocket on this side because that's the whole point of this album, is to have lots of little pockets that you can create little pages that you can take in and out of your album, kind of making everything interactive. So I'm just trimming off the excess here since I have to make sure that there's a nice little gap in the hinge so that nothing overlaps and makes it so it doesn't close. So now I want to create a pocket, and I'm actually going to create a vertical pocket rather than a horizontal one. So I'm looking for something that will contrast nicely. Kind of running out of options here. There's a lot of what we call signature papers on this paper pad, so not enough patterns for this pocket making process, or at least not a lot, so I have to be creative with what I use. So I'm going to add another hole to this, or a little, punched out hole to this pocket. I like the consistency of adding the little half circles. Adding liquid glue to the edges again. Of course, you want a nice thin line of liquid glue so it doesn't take too much of your pocket up, so that you can have a decent sized card going in there, decent sized little layout. There we go. So cute. So I'm showing you, or no, I thought I was going to. Opening it up so you can see that all you have to do is change the way that you fold it to make it an accordion album. So you can fold it this way, you can fold it this way, and it would be an accordion album. But I want it to be a folder album. So it's just really a personal preference, whatever you want. So now I need to start making the inserts. So one thing about me is I don't love pre-scrapbooking. I don't set up my December daily in advance. I don't like, decorating full pages for mini albums before I'm ready to actually use them. So I am going to create some base cards to stick in here, but I'm not going to embellish them too much because I want to have some room for change and decoration. So here's where I'm like, oh, I can do this, because I didn't love the way that black floral was looking halfway covered up. So I just put this piece that I had cut off originally back where it was, and now when I create a tag for it, it's going to slide right in between the polka dot papers, and it's going to be super cool looking. Isn't that cool? I love it. It was a little stroke of luck right there. So now I need a paper for one more little tag, so I'm looking for something patterned that will contrast easily. I'm going to use this big polka dot. So I'm trimming these papers down. These inserts are all 5 inches wide by 7.5 inches tall. All 3 of them end up being that. And then I'm going to add different size mats to them as well, to sort of create photo or paper mats for different photo sizes. So I've got all 3 of these here, and I need something for this cover too. So I'm pulling out some papers that I think might work. And I'm going to cut this one down to 4.5 by 4.5. Oh, actually, the one that ends up going there is 4.5 by 4.5, but I'm not going to put this one there. I decided to put it somewhere else. So it's going to go on this one, and this mat is 4.5 by 6.5 to mat a 4 by 6 photo with a 1/4 inch all the way around. I'm going to snip this one specifically into a tag. They're not all going to be tags. I just thought that this one had a weird little gap, awkward thing at the top, so I just made it into a tag so that it wouldn't have this weird space at the top. The rest of them do end up having spaces on top and bottom, but they are more significant spaces, so they don't look like an accident, because, well, they aren't. They're choices because I want to leave places for titles or journaling or whatever it is that I'm going to add. So this one ends up with a 4.5 by 6.5 inch. Oh no, this one ends up with a 3.5 by 4.5 inch mat on it for a 3x4 photo, just to vary it up a little bit. And also later on, if I end up wanting to include 2 photos, I can layer them over each other as well. So I decide to put this one up a little bit high on the mat. I can add some journaling under there. I can add titles. I can add decoration. I just wanted to leave myself some space for creativity later on down the line. So this one ends up with a 4.5 by 6.5 inch mat for a 4x6 photo. You can see that I'm choosing papers that contrast the paper that I'm putting it on top of. Also, I got some super permanent ATG adhesive, which I am not loving because I make way too many mistakes for permanent ATG adhesive. Gotta make sure I pay more attention when I order next time. So lastly, I need a mat for the other side, this side. So I end up going with this one, and it's going to be 4.5 by 4.5 for a 4-inch photo. So yeah, that is the album. The last thing I have to do is add a sort of a cover hinge on the outside so that there was just a little bit of a gap on the corner, so I decided to add a little hinge, and I messed it up initially, and so I have to redo it, so I just skipped the whole mess up part, but I end up cutting it down to 2 inches and then scoring it at 1 inch, and then wrapping it around the album. You don't want to do this too tightly or too loosely, because too tightly will make it so that it like springs open, and too loosely makes it hard to open at all. So just kind of have a nice tension on it and double check and triple check and make sure that everything is opening and closing nicely. So that is it for this video. I'd love it if you give it a thumbs up. If you're new here, go ahead and subscribe. I would love to have you. And if you don't already, you can follow me over on Instagram. I'm at Tracy M. Reed, and I would love to connect with you over there as well. All right, thank you.